Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today for VR Gamescast. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by Don Hopper in Missouri as we discuss what people are playing in VR headsets. We're in Quest 3 headsets with last generation meta avatars. I think Don is probably Gray Don over there because his texture won't load because meta is shifting to new avatars and his texture has been kept within the system ransom until we switch over. We're using hand tracking with built-in microphones, and we've got Beck out there in Canada broadcasting the show for us today. My thanks to our patrons for supporting the work we do on UploadVR.com. That's XR Developer News, Podum, developer of Smash Drums, Holonet, Mike Manzano, and Richard Meller. Don, what do we have today?
Well, Ian, let's start out today by talking about this little game called Animal Company that has somehow risen to the top of the sales charts on Quest, beating out titans like Beat Saber and Gorilla Tag. And then after that, I think let's shift gears and dive into the review on our site for Farming Simulator VR. And then, well, I think we should finish up today by having a discussion around a really interesting article talking about how Golf Plus is potentially looking to add the Logitech MX Ink stylus as a trackable objects. And, we've been on that subject off and on for several episodes. So I think we kind of deepen that discussion and talk a little bit more about tracked objects and controllers for VR gameplay. So I don't know, let's kick it off today. What did you think about the news of Animal Company taking over the top spot on Quest?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, right? Animal Company taking sort of the ideas of Gorilla Tag and taking them in another direction and expanding on them at the very same time that the original creator of Gorilla Tag, another Axiom, has done the very same thing with their own platform, moving into Orion's Drift, right? So even though you could argue that Animal Company is just one of like a sea of clones, they're doing something very unique to themselves. Like they're doing it at a very high level, I guess, so to speak, compared to a lot of the also ran Gorilla Tag clones. But it's fascinating to see these two platforms grow into their own, separate to each other.
It is, and and the funny thing is, I mean, you're lumping it in there with the category of Gorilla Tag clones, and obviously it is. Uses the Gorilla Tag movement system, similar Gorilla Tag graphics. But one thing that I thought was interesting is that they kind of brought a horror element to this one.
Yeah.
So
like like Five Nights in Freddy vibes, that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like they're exploring creepy environments alone or with your friends, and you could do it in public or private lobbies, and it's kind of like, I guess they describe it as survival meets pure chaos, and I don't know, it just, from the video that I've seen, I have not personally jumped in. I think you jumped in for just a few minutes just to kind of look around prior to the broadcast today, but the video that I've seen, it just, I don't know, it looks like Gorilla Tag dark,
It's also got it seemed to low resolution. They're really struggling on getting to show details there with all the physics and things that they've got going on. But that's kind of standard for that kind of game, right? That you're trying to get that kind of physicality. Well, I think it's just one we're going to watch. And the interesting thing that I thought I'd mention there is this is from the company or the group behind the spatial platform that was floating around there. And they've dipped into VR and out of VR as a group with various projects over the years. And so it's fascinating to see them sort of land in this area of free to play, or like at least in this Gorilla Tag-ish region of the market, right? After being this completely different thing a couple of years ago. So I don't know if I'm looking over at the comments here and catching up on everyone there. Hello,
I was going to say Yo-Yo's got it nailed it right here. Apparently it's inspired by Lethal Company as well, hence the name. And I absolutely can see those influences in the game. But I mean, since its launch, it has had a lot of weekly updates. I mean, this thing is not just a one and done clone, so to speak, as like a lot of the other Gorilla Tag clones that we do see on the market, which are just a quick cash grab, throw it out there, asset flip. So I mean, the developers are really putting something into this one, and I think it's interesting, and obviously it's a hit. I mean, as we say in the review, it's sitting at a 4.8 out of 5 star rating across over like almost 60,000 reviews at this point.
And the numbers, right? I think they reviewed that they had a large. It's not quite Gorilla Tag scale, but they're
Hmm.
closing in on Gorilla Tag scale when it comes
Yeah.
to monthly active users. So this is one I think we're going to try to follow up on with the creators of Animal Company and Spatial, and try to unfold some of the stories. It's such a good opportunity for us to get them into the studio and do our format that we've done in recent shows, with maybe Don playing in the background, flying around the environments, and me in conversation with the devs. So we'll reach out to that dev and see if we can get them into the studio sometime in the near future for that
I think
breakdown
it'd be
of
fascinating.
their path from Spatial to Animal Company, and how they had to kind of shift directions late last year and arrive at this new product. So stay tuned for us as we dive into Animal Company and figure out really what's going on there. I'm seeing a bunch of people in our audience sort of learning about this game for the first time as well today. Just want to say hi to everyone out there. I see VR Cified, Kansas City Chiefs, Daniel Leeper, Yo-Yo, and of course, back out there, thank you all for tuning in. Hit that like button and share this link out to anyone you want to introduce to VR gaming in the near future. I'm really excited to talk about the things that I did last week.
Oh yeah.
Don, did you get a chance to read my draft on the holodeck?
I skimmed your first draft, and then I did
Okay.
not see it because I was also working on something that we're going to be talking about a little bit in another episode, and then showing on Friday. But
I can't wait to talk about that. And I haven't decided yet whether it's like more fitting for VR
yeah,
download or for Gamescast, because just
yeah.
maybe I'll just talk about them both, because it's such a big idea. What I
No,
saw
you
out there
could.
in Austin,
I
Texas.
mean, I think okay. I'm chomping at the bit for you to be able to talk about it, because you used a word from Star Trek that is near and dear to my heart in your original title. so,
Yeah. How are
so
you? The night is dark and full of terrors. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it could be because like last week we got scared by the interruption from Beck. I don't know what she might be doing to us this week.
Oh gosh,
It's
no,
always
that's
scary
right.
up in
No,
here.
that was a beautiful moment. I got to see a
I loved it.
cat,
Oh,
unexpected
I loved
cat.
it.
Go email Beck a cat right now that is near and dear
Yeah.
to your
No, show
heart,
us
and
your.
upend our stream, because
Mhm.
we love those cats, and um, I am sure
Yeah.
Beck will love grabbing those cats out of the inbox and put them in front of us.
I'm
Yeah, I
telling you,
have no
the
plans for
upload VR.
interruptions this week yet. See, you can change our plans by sending us a cat.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. So
All right.
and then we can, like, if we get 12 of them, then we can do like the pets of UVR calendar. So
Well, stay tuned for our coverage of the holodeck, and bring it up so that I have an excuse to talk about it, because it's amazing, right? But before then, let's get into this next subject. What is our next
Okay,
subject
right
on?
on. Well, I mean, yeah, we're probably gonna like kind of move through this one and then kind of get towards the last subject, because I think that's what
Yeah.
we really want to talk about today, and of course, the audience participation. But Farming Simulator VR, and we've got a review of this up on the site. I jumped into it a little bit this morning just to kind of check it out. This seems to be, one of those escapism type things where you're gonna basically own your farm, and you're just going to disconnect from the hustle and bustle of daily life and pull the whole Green Acres dream there. And it accomplishes that, but as our reviewer said, and just even in the brief time that I played it's maybe a little too simple. It's, to me, it was like, do this task, wash this tractor, do this task, wash this tractor. It's I don't know. I'm personally, I love a good simulator, don't get me wrong, but it still needs to have some pacing to it, to really keep me engaged, so to speak. And there's only so much power washing I can do. Now, I will say that if you are really into, I want to know how a farm works, and all the minutia that goes into it, then this is your game. I mean, it is definitely one that is going to give you the simulation of being a farmer from starting your day to ending your day and selling your crop, and but there's only so much of that I could do before I just got bored in the game.
Mm.
So
There is a beautiful comment out there from KC Chiefs Productions that I want to talk about, that'll probably distract us here in a minute. But let's
Okay.
finish our discussion about Farming Simulator, I guess, before we start derailing and talking about our comments. And of course, leave any interesting comments, questions you might have. We can respond to them out there in the comments while we're live, and then of course we'll put this out on podcast platforms afterwards. But yeah, Stardew Valley or nothing for me when it comes to farming. And gosh, give me a spatial version of Stardew Valley, one that like volumetrically rises from the map a little bit, or isometrically rises in a little bit of way. Gosh, that would just, I don't know. Until I've got that, I'm not necessarily super willing to put my time into farming simulators. I see Ross mentioned Garden of the Sea. That is a beautiful game, and yeah, that has all the elements there that you would be looking for out of a Stardew Valley with a game that's already out there.
I mean, this one, I will say, it was relaxing. I mean, you got, the nature sounds, and I mean, it's a peaceful, tranquil. So if you like, say, work a very high stress job, or, you just really need something that's going to not be run and gun, and I need to just be critically thinking the whole time, and you just want to kind of disconnect and just kind of exist in that peaceful Green Acres type existence, then yeah, this could be a nice escape. For some people. For me, I still got to have a little more meat,
Yeah.
So, and speaking of more meat, I mean, that's our reviewer brought that up in his final verdict that, I know I had a weird transition there, but, he says with the omission of certain VR accessibility options, a lack of activities such as raising livestock and visual bugs, it's not hard to imagine how much more this game could be. And, that was, I think, some of the other reviews I've read, in prepping for today, said the same thing. It's that it doesn't really have a lot of parity with Farming Simulator PC. So you've got a lot more that you can do. Now, I think it's either today or it's coming out soon. They do have a pack coming out for this that's going to add more modern equipment and things that you can use. So
it's interesting to see the rise of simulators as a category, right? It's becoming much more popular to throw simulator in your title. I don't know, it's been a whole genre before, but I'm seeing like a lot of simulator titles also embrace VR. Like it's a whole genre outside of VR, but I don't know. It seems like there's an increase in the number of games with simulator in the title that represent a specific activity.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to address Casey Chief's Productions. So he says, I was happy about Farming Simulator, but I heard you can't walk around. Actually, that's the first thing they teach you how to do in the tutorial. I mean, so yeah, you can walk around your farm, and I mean, you can explore. So you do have that. So
let's talk about some of those other comments as we move on to our last subject here in a minute. But before we get to that last subject, this is just such interesting things to talk about. So Casey Chief saying something I thought was kind of interesting. I suck at staying up late. Once it gets dark, my brain switches to sleepy mode. So you've got a very good circadian rhythm there. But playing games in VR with daylight helps me forget it's even night. So I don't know if you don't know about the night mode that is available in the menu system. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Sorry, it just caught
I like the
me
font
over
here.
I do. I love this actually. Ian
It's
and Don
time.
are digressing. Yes.
Yeah. This is beautiful. Beautiful type.
I love this, Beck. Thank you for this.
Beck, did you do newspaper when you were in or yearbook when you were in school? Because this looks like the work of a yearbook student. All right, I can't hear Beck, so I can't hear the response.
I can't hear her either. And I don't know. Maybe we lost her there for a minute.
Yes, we are digressing here. Oh wait. Was that Beck?
Yes. Oh, I see your comment now. There you go.
So Beck says they did not do your book, so my theory is wrong. Well, that looks like beautiful design. The comment here on the off subject, if you don't know about the night mode, you can simulate the yellow light that you would want to have at nighttime, and it's really, really fascinating if you turn that on and how it feels and how it can kind of ready your brain for night mode.
I've never liked it though. I don't know, it's just, to me, it casts that yellow tinge across the screen, and it's removing the blue light is what it's doing. So it's like wearing, I don't know, like when I buy sunglasses, I can't stand those amber tinted sunglasses, or the yellowish tinted sunglasses. I have to have the darker tinted sunglasses. So maybe that plays into it, but I don't know. It just feels weird turning that on.
Let me go deep off topic here, right? And ask, have you ever experienced VR rage?
VR rage.
Yeah, I think there's an equivalent of road rage for VR.
Okay.
Because it's a similar mindset. You're in work, you're focused on a task at hand, and someone breaks you out of that line of thinking, and now you've got to someone outside of your VR experience now needs to interrupt you. Do you experience anger when that happens?
That's an interesting question, Ian. And, actually, I can say that there have been a few times that, yes, I have had someone come and tap me on the shoulder. Or, first of all, it's jarring. I mean, that's why we really do need a really good system to alert us when people come into our play spaces, especially on Quest. But first of all, it's jarring. So that's the first emotion, is like, whoa, oh my God, I'm not in this reality, and something just touched me from another world. But yeah, there have been a couple of times now that you asked that question that I have felt a little angry that someone disturbed me. It was almost like the feeling of being ripped from one reality to another instantaneously, and I did not like it. And
that's the similar feeling of, like, imagine someone cuts you off on the road, right?
Yeah.
What they took you out of was this. I'm in my zone, right? You've essentially focused on this task. Your mind is in one place, and holy crap, now I need to be thinking about this other reality of I might die instantaneously.
Yeah, Arlen says that his kitties are the ones that do that to him, and as well, yes, I have all of my fur babies that constantly get me in VR. And then Beck saying, I get that feeling when I hear a Slack notification. Yes, PTSD every time you hear the
Ian is typing. All right, I had a t-shirt.
News is breaking. News is breaking. News is breaking.
Yeah, I had a t-shirt made by a coworker that says Ian is typing on it because of the trauma that I caused them by constantly typing into the Slack window. So Don knows this, Beck knows this as well.
I know this. I just sit there and I sometimes hang, and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Just staring at the Ian is typing, and I'm gonna hit enter eventually and send it off to you all. I love Daniel saying that my life is in sepia because I'm old, and I like Arlen saying that they can't get mad at their kitties. I love that too. So have some forgiveness and understanding for the people on the outside of VR who might not understand what a moment of focus might mean. That you don't have a sign on the front of your of your headset that has a countdown timer to when you do not disturb anymore, right? I
wish I could show this on the stream right now from IRL. I am literally wearing a t-shirt right now, Ian, that says, warning, VR user hazard, stand clear to avoid injury. Now, I am not kidding. If I could literally, I'm trying to lift up my overshirt and show it, and of course nobody's going to see it because I'm not on a real camera. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, but I did the motion.
That's your level of presence, Don. I love it.
Yeah, that's my level of presence right now in the studio on this show in front of you guys. I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm going to show you all my cool t-shirt because it's like what he's talking about. But absolutely, I am wearing a shirt that says warning. You may get punched in the face if you come near me while I'm in VR. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think about that. I want to think about that a little bit, and that's my need is right. I need a timer, right? I need the timer that says interrupt me after this focus time. All right, it's time for us to move.
Yes, because now everybody's talking about we need Grey Dawn t-shirts and merchandise.
I would love a Grey Dawn t-shirt, just a weird avatar. Man. And
I'm gonna make one just to have one. I think it's I was gonna say if we do the thing that we were talking about, I'm just gonna dress all in gray. Then people can come meet me. So, yeah.
All right, I think we're ready to talk about this last subject. And if you have any,
we're really blowing through it today, but.
Yeah, it's going to be a short one, I think, today, but maybe we'll be derailed near the end here if someone interesting bringing up an interesting subject for us to get into. But this last one, I think, will take us a while, since
I think
there's a
so.
lot of things it touches. So why don't you break it down for us?
There's a lot of rabbit holes here. So, okay, so we had some reporting come up on our site that right now Golf Plus is testing tracking using your real putter in combination with Logitech's MX Ink stylus. Now, when that stylus first came out, that's the first thing I thought of. I mean, I was like, I'm not thinking of drawing. I'm thinking, oh my God, this thing is so small and lightweight, you know, instead of like trying to use a Quest controller as a tracker and, whatever you're trying to do there, what if we could start attaching that to objects? And now Golf Plus, they're working on it. So, it's amazing to see that. And obviously, that particular stylus and the marriage of just an everyday putter is going to be incredible. I mean, I've done that before. I've strapped my Quest controller and played walkabout mini golf that way, So it is something that I thought was really cool to see. Now, the MX Ink has been out since September, and it was the first officially supported third-party track controller for a Meta headset. And, we've been talking about this across several shows, but it's like, I know I've said it before, I want to see more specialty tracked controllers, something that is an analog to what I'm doing, and we have them. There are golf putters out there, there are bows. We are currently working on coverage of rifles and pistols, and so holding something that's analog to the real world equivalent in your hands, to me, is an instant present booster, and it just takes me so much further down that rabbit hole of immersion that I just want more.
Yeah. So I got the third version of the grip to putter that Walkabout has been promoting with their product when I was in Austin last week, and they had some new changes. I had the first two grip to putters, but I ended up throwing them away because one, the little mechanism that grabs the grip button broke off on the first one, and I think the second one I had didn't have that mechanism at all. But anyways, I ended up just not using them. The new one, though, has a really, really, really cool feature, and it's a button that you basically push to lock the controller in place, and then you slide it back out. It locks into that position, and then you slide it back out when you want to remove the controller from the tracked object. Well, I've got the pistol, or I've got a handgun, I've got a rifle, I've got a ping pong paddle, I've got a putter. I've got all of these ready to be mounted on my walls as part of my armory, my home VR armory. And the only problem is that several of them require a physical tool to unlock the controller from the object. And I might as well have welded the tracked object to the accessory, because I don't want to go get that tool ever. I want a tracked object. So now I've got an actual Quest 3S that's dedicated to gunplay, basically. A Quest 3S that is linked to the Ace Virtual Shooting app for the handgun, and then the other controller to that Quest 3S is linked to the striker gun that we're looking at as well. And I have to have a tool to remove the controllers from either of those things. I'm not going to do that, right? I don't want to go find those tools. So now that Quest 3S is dedicated to practicing my shooting, and that's how I'm going to do it. Whereas I need my grip to putter. I need that little button that's on the grip to putter on every one of these other objects, so that I take one controller, I just quickly press a button, pull it out, put it into the next object, and I'm good to go.
Well, you know what I need, Ian, and what I would love to see is the not having to use any external object. I want to see, and it's been the dream for years, since Constellation. Where are our tracked specialty controllers? I mean, I don't want to take my Quest controller and attach it to something. I don't want to take a Logitech MX Ink and attach it to something. I want to buy a gun that is already tracked. I want to buy a pool cue that is already tracked. I want to buy a ping pong paddle that is fully tracked. So
hmm I get it, and yeah. So this is why it's going to touch a lot of different areas. I've been talking about this with
Hmm.
devs. I want to talk about the gun a little bit more.
Yeah,
The hand
absolutely.
handle on both the striker gun and the handgun model, the dry fire handgun. They've reversed the controller position so that it's
Hmm.
turned around backwards at you, so the lights on the controller face are facing you, and it can see those, but it's reversed completely backwards. What ends up happening is my hand is gripping a handgun exactly right, like it feels haptically 1 to 1. It's got the weight of an actual handgun in my hand, and now I put on the headset and I see a shooting range, and I can practice my fire that way, right? So I'm doing this, and I'm holding the gun and steadying it that way. Um, but my fingers can actually reach the analog stick on the controller in the reversed position, and they're actually using that for some input on the
Hmm.
gun. So like if I want to teleport to another spot on the gun range, I'm using that stick. The buttons do a few things, and it's remarkable that I'm using this controller in backwards, and it's cooler to me. It's like it's better. I mean, my headset is now just tracking my hands, right? That's all I really need the headset to do is track my hands. And now I'm going to go pick up my gun, and it's got this tracked object on top of it with the analog
With
stick in
the
reverse.
analog stick,
So
right?
so what's interesting is it's better than a dumb tracked object that doesn't have any controls in it. And it's actually better than having a controller,
Hmm.
because like now I'm turning the controller into a tracked object, right? So I'm getting the benefit from both, using them as controllers or tracked objects. Now, if you go look at what Valve is doing and the rumors of the photos we've seen or the images we've seen of the potential controllers they've got, those have two triggers on them, right?
Hmm.
To match the gamepad layout
Yeah.
1 to 1. So you could have two of these controllers in your hands and play any gamepad game, or most VR games, because some VR games are probably going to have to be modified for the two controllers or for whatever the setup is. My What does Valve do? Does Valve embrace the same idea? Is there going to be another wave of accessories out there that now take the Valve controllers and put them on top? Uh, or is
It
there going to
is.
be another option that's coming to do all
It's
this?
a tough nut to crack, man. I mean, because then, obviously that would rely on them being able to access the tracking system, because we're not doing external tracking anymore. It was easier in the older days for accessory manufacturers to do these tracked input systems because they could just build to Lighthouse, and that was the standard. And they knew as long as they put the Lighthouse sensors on the object, it could be tracked. Now we've got multiple different methods of inside out tracking across different headsets. And, so I don't think that's really going to be a thing until we find some sort of standardization. Now, kind of going back to what you were talking about, it really got my brain thinking, how my brain goes down these old day of VR rabbit holes. So why not just you were talking about, having the combination of the Quest controls, but it's still using it as the tracked controller. Well, I don't normally bring it up, but if you go back on my personal channel from many, many, many years ago, I created a gun I called it the Touch Shot Elite. It was actually the something Elite Shot. It was an Xbox 360 controller for playing some hunting game. And it actually was an Xbox controller. It had all of the sticks, all of the buttons that an Xbox controller had. You plugged in your sensor to the PC. It could be addressed by Steam. And I simply just made that a tracked object. And I played Doom 3 mod back in like 8 years ago with a tracked gun that had full controls, the way that you're talking about. All that ever would have been needed to make that a fully tracked weapon for that mod or any game on Steam would have been if I would have been knowledgeable enough to have bought Lighthouse sensors and affixed them to it.
Eh,
So I'm sorry, just real quick to finish my thought, having that complete package, the full controller as the tracked object. It is specialty. It's, going to work with these types of games. This is it's going to work with all these different shooters. It's going to work with this. That's the dream.
Yep. I love that. Very good backstory there. And I'm thinking of Arlen out in our comments because we have to bring up Deadpool versus Wolverine.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right. So this is an idea we've basically concepted out with Arlen in our comments. For those of you who aren't familiar, Arlen has been asking to be Wolverine for like 6 months now on our show. And we even talked about it with the developer of Batman Arkham Shadow to imagine this idea. We're moving to a place where Meta has these controllers, right? But they're also developing wristbands, right? You put a wristband over here, you put a wristband over here, you get a powerful haptic effect on your wrist, and you also have the wristband sensing the signals that your brain is sending through your arm down to your hand. And over time, you can teach your brain to actually like tell your fingers to move, but they're not actually moving, right?
Yeah.
Like you can start sending ghost signals down the line is more or less the way it's being implied, such that you can, have your hands sitting at your side, you're sitting there and you're actually typing on a keyboard, but your hands aren't moving. Like that's the dream, and it sounds way too sci-fi for us to possibly imagine right now. But they are betting very, very big into it. And it's fascinating because there's no displays on these bands. They're all in on the idea that your headset is the display or your glasses are the display. And what does that do for an Apple Watch where every Apple Watch has a big display on it, and it's going to obviously cost a certain amount because of all that extra technology and it being a completely different thing. All that's to say, right? We can play this game. Don over there with a pair of controllers in his hands, and me as Wolverine with wristbands on, and we will play Deadpool and Wolverine co-op, enjoying our trip through that journey together. We need it, right? We want it. We're wondering if Meta's going to fund it. We're wondering if someone is actually going to deliver on this dream to us. And gosh, right? Like,
no, I mean,
when we start seeing this, how many brains will explode, right? I already see it in our audience a little bit.
And you just said brain. So like, let's take it a step further. I mean, because Valve was for years experimenting with the EEG technology built into the headset. So imagine having that game and just thinking that you want to pull out your claws and then out. And, I mean, or just doing a simple gesture with one of the wristbands. I mean, that it would kind of, read that neural feedback, and then whoosh, and then you feel that little bit of haptic, and then, man, you've got your claws out and you're ready to go. Oh.
Right. I don't think it necessarily has to do that on the head. I think it could probably do that entirely on the wrist.
Probably do it from the wrist.
And you just have to figure out what signal it is that you're telling the computer. And it's like, oh, that's your I'm Wolverine signal. All right, I'll pay attention for I'm Wolverine in the future. And all you got to do is think I'm Wolverine, and boom, your blades pop out.
I'm gonna say you call it sci-fi, but it's now. I mean, we could be
now,
doing this
right?
Like
to be clear, yes, Don went and tried Mudra, right? And that was at CES. Yes. It was a third-party example of the same.
Had even pressure sensitivity. I mean, it was insane.
And I saw this concept played out 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago now at Meta's headquarters. Mark Zuckerberg wore the band. Then at Orion last year, I saw Alex Klum, developer at Agile Lens. He wore the band and used it for input on the Orion glasses. This is a very, very long-term big bet. And the thing that Meta told me a couple years ago, well, I want to say it's 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago now, that they said that they were going to try to productize it within the span of 5 years. So think about that time span, right? We are now nearing the window where they're going to try to productize this band's technology. And we've seen reports, we've had it, we'll cover it more on VR Download with David Heaney. But it's a big, big, big idea that we are wrapping our heads around as science fiction, but it's real and it exists in these labs, and they're going to try to productize it very soon. And the moment we have that, like, think about all these things happening all at once, potentially this year or next year, right? A pair of track controllers that totally match the input for a gamepad, and these wristbands
Hmm.
that totally free your hands up while also giving you mind what feels like mind control superpowers,
Oh
because
yeah.
your hands are completely free, but you're getting haptic effects at the
Oh.
wrist for when you do things. It's going to be phenomenal.
I'd take it a step further. This is something that I'm going to be checking out at GDC next week. There's a company called Ovobind that's also doing a wristband, but their wristband actually reads your emotions and feeds it into the game, and can actually alter the gameplay based on your feeling.
So
So that's going to be
Onikazi
an
asked,
interesting demo.
So Onikazi asking, did they show this specific variable mapping, or are you extrapolating on what you think is possible? I'm extrapolating a bit. However, what they showed when I saw them a couple years ago was the researchers wore the band and then did a temple run type game where,
Hmm.
if you remember that game, it's left, right, it's swipe left, swipe right. Um, Basically to avoid the objects, or I think there's another command for like
No,
jumping
there's jump
typically.
or duck. Yeah, I think there's
um
jump and duck.
and I think they had those basic mechanics worked out for a game, and this poor researcher was like clearly nervous in front of all these journalists, and he's trying to run the temple run game, and it wasn't perfect in my demo years ago. Like, they couldn't even get it to work flawlessly for that type of input. But years of progress, and we've already seen some of these demos done with the Orion glasses, and Andrew Bosworth said to me that the head of the project, so Andrew Bosworth is CTO of Meta, for those who aren't familiar, and he said to me that the head of the wristband project can replace his keyboard
Hmm.
with the wristbands. And like
Yeah.
the other journalists in the room didn't key in on that idea, but
Yeah.
it's stuck in the back of my mind for years now, right? Think about that buy-in, right? Think about what kind of training he must be doing day in and day out to really command the signals coming out of his
Hmm.
arm, and then figuring out, how do I productize this for anyone to be able to learn what I'm doing in a fraction of the time. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
No, well, you had mentioned Mudra earlier. I tried them at CES, and they talked to me about that concept where you could have two bands. You could have one on each hand, and they could literally act as your keyboard and mouse. So, and I know you've been doing Tap XR, I think is the one that you've been testing. So,
Yeah, and I think I'm ready to probably write about the Tap XR, because ultimately it's a cool thing, but I do have to relearn
Mhm.
every single letter. And I got through the vowels, I got through some of the consonants, and the push to go and learn the rest of the 15 letters that I need to type on this thing is at odds with the quality of the tracking that's coming
Yep.
from this camera. And it's like, why am I going to go and spend all this extra time learning those 15 remaining letters, only to have...
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know how long I was muted there.
I don't either, because I'm hearing you in the other thing. Oh, 3 cents. Okay.
Okay, so I hit the mute button there. I don't know I don't know how much training is going to be required to learn how to type on a
No,
virtual keyboard from Meta, right? Are they going to be
I
able
lost
to
you and I can't hear him.
You can't hear me, Don? I'm unmuted here. Am I?
No, now you're back. Oh. Oh.
Okay, he can hear me. The audience can hear me now, but Don cannot hear me. Sorry about that. I love it. Yeah, so what I'm talking about is I've got the Tap XR band. I put it on my wrist. It's got a little sensor underneath that looks at the movements of my hands, and I have to put my hand in a very specific position to give it the view of my fingertips as they're doing their thing. And I don't like, if I go and spend all that time to learn the other 15 letters that I need to learn to type out whole stories with one hand using this TapXR band, it feels like this sensor is still missing enough of the taps to not make it worth it. So it's a big question whether Meta is able to improve it well enough to be way better than that. Like, can Meta decrease the training time it takes to learn how to type on that keyboard? I don't know. We'll see. But fascinating stuff. And I liked Onakazi talking about how much of our fine motor movements take for granted. The fact that you're getting such feedback on the other end of all these things, and without that, it could be a problem. But like, I'll just argue, right? Like Beat Saber, I don't know. There's certain things where you just need one really solid haptic effect and not a fine one. I don't know. You back, Don?
Yes, I am back. Sorry about that. I was actually, the reason I couldn't hear you is because I had you turned down in the studio because I did not have my headphone, but luckily my daughter ran over and grabbed it for me, so I didn't have to get out of my seat and show everybody that we have no legs.
No!
So,
Oh.
so sorry about that. So I had to, but anyway.
Yes, Onakazi is saying it's gross motor movement in Beat Saber, and that's exactly right. Yeah, so there's a lot of games that could probably be met by this type of thing, even though like there's a path for them to go out further. And of course, Arlen out there who had to catch up to our show today by time traveling. And we appreciate all our time travelers out there, all our people who are watching us from virtual reality as well, people who are watching us after or listening to us after the fact. We appreciate all of you, all you people who are consuming us in every format imaginable. Beck's talking about the Lawnmower Man now. I watched the Lawnmower Man director's cut recently, and that was good.
I have not seen it in years. I need to rewatch that, and I need to see the director's cut desperately.
Oh, man. It was good. Yeah, there was a bunch of added details, and I love picking apart the tech that they use, right? Because there's like one shot where they let you see a monkey through the VR headset, right? Like, because they're doing that same thing that Ready Player One does, where they let you see the eyes through the headset, and you're just supposed to fill in the gap that it's supposed to be a VR headset in there.
That was awesome. So, Arlen, Lord Graydon will never leave you. And Uncanny Valley, Craig Melville, yes. Uncanny Valley, no legs. Yes, we have no legs. Eventually, we will have legs one of these days when Meta grants them.
But they might not be real legs, right? They might be fake legs. They may not be. Right?
They might be fake legs.
I can try to kick Don, and I don't know if I don't know if it's going to let me kick you.
I don't know. I could try to kick you right now, but see, like, nothing's happening.
I can see the effort, but I like that the fact that there's no, like, I know that you're just wasting energy, right?
It was. It was pretty wasted energy there. Yes, Arlen, for the record, Lawnmower Man 2 never happened, and that is sad.
Job's War, or whatever it was called.
Yes, yes. Oh, that would have been so cool. So.
Yeah, there's some really funny. If you've seen the Electric Dreams, I think it's Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams over on Amazon. There's one episode about VR, I think in the first season, and there's this back and forth between a guy and like his spouse talking about, I'm not going to let VR take over my life or something like that. And it's hysterical, the back and forth. And Lawnmower Man has one of those scenes pretty early on where the wife is leaving Pierce Brosnan. He's like, he hasn't even been cast as James Bond yet. And she's leaving Pierce Brosnan because he's too into his VR. And my heart goes out to you, Pierce. I understand.
Yes, very thankful for my wife who has put up with my VR passions and obsessions for the last 10 years. So, Stacy, you are the best. Just going to say it right here publicly in front of everybody.
We see people talking about Johnny Mnemonic and Indiana Jones 4 and 5 never happened. Highlander 2 also never happened.
It didn't, but the
bad guy in Highlander 2 is kind of cool. I like that.
The Kurgan. Clancy Brown. That's what started him. But okay, so they are remaking Highlander. Which normally I'm not on board with remakes, but I don't know. I mean, Highlander maybe, but I don't know. I mean, you've got Clancy Brown and the soundtrack from Queen, and could you ever really duplicate that in a remake?
Unless it has Queen, it's not going to be the same. And then who plays the Kurgan? No.
Who plays the Kurgan now? I've got an idea of who I think could pull it off, especially after seeing him in Dune. But who do you think?
I've seen people mention Henry Cavill. They want Henry Cavill to pop up so the bad guy. Let's see.
Actually, I think that's the rumor, is that he is going to play the Bane in the
So
Highlander.
I'm seeing people mention Starship Troopers 2.
Yeah, that's
Was
also a thing.
Was Kurgan in Starship Troopers, or was it a different
No,
guy?
he was not. That was Busey's kid. That was Busey. But no,
right.
no. So here's my thing. If they remake, and then I'll get off of Highlander, but I love Highlander. If they remake Highlander, the only person I could really see playing the Kurgan right now, and tell me if I'm wrong, is Dave Bautista.
Yep. I had it in my head. He named it. All right.
Yep.
Let's give him little glasses again. Okay. All right. Give him little glasses and have him cut off people's heads.
Yes. I think, after seeing him in Dune, it hit, and I was like, okay, no, he could be the Kurgan. That would fit. So
yeah. Clancy Brown was Lieutenant Zim in Starship Troopers.
Oh no, he was. Never mind. So Clancy Brown wasn't it? Okay, never mind. Okay, I am losing nerd cred today.
Oh man! All right, now I want Highlander. All right,
well, it was from staying up so late last night doing the really cool thing that I'm about to tease for Friday here. So
yeah, you want to go ahead and
can we do it? Let's just talk about it, because there's going to be an article soon, and there's going to be a stream on Friday. So. We love the holodeck. We're Star Trek fans, and one of the coolest things about going on the holodeck is that you get to actually talk and converse with fictional characters. And we've kind of alluded to, games having this ability through mods for a couple of episodes over the course of the year, but I finally tried it, and I cannot wait to show everybody on Friday Skyrim using the Mantella AI voice mod with my paid GPT subscription, making it a little faster, a little better. It's nuts, Ian. It's like you are walking around in Skyrim having contextually aware conversations with digital humans. It is just beyond weird. They have backstories. They know each other. At one point, I think in the example that I showed you, the very first example, I'm talking to a towns guard, and this lady walks by, and I'm like, hey, who is she? And he takes a second, because it takes a second. There is a little bit of a lag time still. And he goes, oh, that's so-and-so, and she's Jarl so-and-so's handmaid, and she was a shield maiden in this. And so I was like, ooh, I'm going to test something. And so I end the conversation with him, and I run over to her, and I ask her, hey, who are you? And she literally gives me the exact same story. So it's like, and then you can ask them, hey, what's the weather today? Or, hey, do you remember last time I was here? Because they actually remember you. It's nuts.
Yeah, I'm seeing. So Onakazi has corrected us that it is Sergeant Zim, right? I think he's Career Sergeant Zim, if I'm recalling correctly. Isn't he the one who eventually saves the galaxy? Like, he's the one who catches the brain bug?
Yes.
And Arlen's asking, did you also use your catwalk? That's a Gen 1 holodeck at that point too.
Yeah. I for the Skyrim stream, I could pull it out. I didn't even think about that. Because yes, then I could actually walk through Skyrim and talk to people. And then now I will say I like my catwalk. I still, to me, I don't find it an immersion enhancer. I kind of find it an immersion detractor because it just doesn't feel normal to walk on. I never could get my brain to cross that barrier where it didn't feel like I was walking on a frozen lake or sliding across ice in some way. And, I'm a bigger guy. I'm an older guy. Getting on that thing, walking through Skyrim, that stream would probably be 20 minutes long. Because after about 20 good minutes, y'all are going to see me lagging real hard trying to walk. So
there were people who have lost weight by setting their treadmills to real walking time in Skyrim, and you imagine just walking from one end of the map to the other, and that's brilliant to think of that use case.
Ironically, ironically, the very first time I saw an omnidirectional treadmill, I looked at my wife and I said, wouldn't it be amazing in VR to jog through Skyrim? To just go for a run through Tamriel next to a river. And, so, yeah, I get that.
So Dunadim saying AI is cool and all, but none of them have long-term memory, which immediately
They don't
breaks
have
the
long
immersion.
term.
And I did notice this in Don's clips that he shared with us. Is it's not what we it's not what we
No.
want, right? It's not, the latency is way
Mm-mm.
lagging. The accuracy of the responses is way off in
Right.
some of the things. They don't necessarily contextualize or break apart um, phrasing, right? If you Don's cancels his question mid-sentence and goes
Right.
to a different question halfway through, they're still trying to respond to the first half of the question. So there's all these problems with it, but it's still, you do get the concept across. And that's what's killer to me, Don, is right. Like,
Hmm.
I want it to cross that threshold, and the whole
Exactly.
time I'm watching it, it's not. And it's that same feeling.
It is a glimpse at the beginning. Okay. So I always say that, we are pushing towards the holodeck. That's the ultimate goal of all of this technology converging is that one
Mhm.
day we have a holodeck. And this right here, guys, taking, and no, it's very rudimentary and it's very basic, and no, it doesn't feel real in any way, shape, or form, but it does. So taking things like a catwalk and a B haptics vest and some good haptics gloves and throwing AI voice in Skyrim, any of these things that you can combine to take you further down that rabbit hole, closer to the boot suit from Ready Player One, where you're going to feel sensations and be able to walk through infinite spaces on your, omnidirectional treadmill. We're not there yet, but we are seeing the beginnings of all of it, and this is the most exciting time for this type of tech, and to be on this journey and to get to take this journey with all of you is amazing. And I can't wait to see all of this tech get better over the years.
So there's this one bit of technology I just want to talk about. Do you know what OSC is, Don?
OSC.
I think that's what it's called. It's the
Elaborate a little bit.
I believe it's the protocol or the communication system for theater lights and sounds. Like, that's how they communicate all of the local uh, things that need to happen in a theater. But I
Okay, I'm
think
not
it's also
familiar.
how avatars are animated inside of VR chat. It's like this underlying protocol. Correct me if I'm wrong out there. I've got the terminology wrong on what this is. But it's this fascinating thing that I've talked about on and off on our shows for years here. But imagine having 10 fans located around the roof of your room, around the ceiling, and they're all pointed at the center of a play
Hmm.
space. And then all of those fans are connected to a protocol like this
Yes. Okay.
that then receives commands from your VR experience. It then gets weather from your VR world, right? And so your world says the temperature is 80 degrees and the wind is blowing at 20 miles per hour. And so it sends a command to those 10
Oh
fans
man, that
blowing
would be
above your
mind
head
blowing.
that gives you 20 mile per hour winds. Or imagine a dragon flying overhead, and that
Yes.
exact moment is when you get a blast of wind from the fans overhead. It's fascinating to think of bringing all this together. The holodeck that I saw was exploring the same idea, right? They're trying to figure out,
Hmm.
how do we get everyone in sync locally on the same environment, right? Like, and how do we send these commands back and forth? And it's fascinating to think of. Open sound control,
Open
Onakazi,
sound.
is a protocol for
OSC. Okay.
networking sound synthesizers, synthesizers,
Synthesizer. Do, 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 do,
computers,
do, do.
and other multimedia devices for purposes such as musical performance. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Okay. That's awesome. And Arlen, I just want to address, yeah, like he's saying, like what Thrill Seeker did 2 years ago when he aggregated all the existing VR peripherals together into one prototype Ready Player One experiment. I also did something real similar to that. When I got my first walking solution, which was called the Walk OVR, I still have that. It actually works still for motion cap, but it's a lower cost solution for doing that kind of stuff. Sensors that you strap to your ankles, your knees, your chest, and your head, and then it translates all that, and you just walk in place. instead of walking on a treadmill. And in some ways, I'm not going to lie, I didn't mind that as much as the treadmill. It wasn't as tiring, but you tended to drift all over the room because you just couldn't stay in one place. So, but I am also, it's kind of funny. I had proposed that to Beck in a private chat the other day. I had mentioned it to you about maybe one of our Friday game streams going full dive, like literally pulling out all my toys at the same time and suiting up Ready Player One and just going as deep down that rabbit hole as we could, taking a stroll through VR chat, maybe, something like that. So it's something I'm considering, Arlen, and anybody else who might be interested in. So let us know if that's something that you might want to see in the comments.
Yeah, one of the things let's think of what the article looks like to match that, because that's what I would love to see, is the gap between those accessories and the ones in film, and that's one of those common ideas that we brought up. I see a lot of people talking about OSC over there and the way that VR chat hands off to an OSC server, and it can be tied to animations and stuff like that. I saw a very interesting question from Christian asking, have either of you come across VR app development for live therapy, similar to platforms like BetterHelp or Zoom therapy sessions? I'm curious if there's a market for that. We know of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous type meetings that are happening in VR all the time.
Yeah,
Horizon has a space for that. I think VR Chat has a space for that. Rec Room might as well. I'm not sure, but they probably had something like that at some point. There are help groups. The question is, I have seen people attempt some of these types of tools. I don't know who's leading in this area right now. I've seen the tools come across my desk that they were trying it. It's a very hard thing to do well, right? Like, how do you get it covered by insurance is a big thing to overcome.
I'll tell you what, though, I mean, I've done therapy at some point in my life, and I can tell you that Teledoc, is not good for that kind of things. You kind of need a more personal connection with your therapist. So it just kind of hit me as you were talking about that, and kind of reflecting on that statement is that this would be a very powerful medium for telehealth therapy, to be able to still embody and be present in the same space together, to see some basic emotion, whether it's animated or not, just to feel like you're present in that space, because talking to a therapist across a screen is not the same experience.
Oh, definitely. And Don is nailing it there, right? Like I did this recently, right? I went and looked for therapists, and it's like real life one-to-one face-to-face therapy is a thing of science fiction now, because of just what COVID has done to the entire market of like actually going and seeing another person. And so most of those products are through video chat, and you can pick up on so much more about a person's emotional state when you see them reclined, like sort of just
you can see my shoulders
body straining with the weight of their emotions, right?
Yeah, no, and I could see, I mean, eventually, as we kind of pattern everything towards the Ready Player One, future, that we are going to the doctor in the Oasis, that you do visit the virtual, clinic, and you see your virtual physician,
So Mr. Mycelium saying, I'm curious if there's any data to support some of this research. I think there is research being done into this. We've talked to some companies that work in this area. It takes years to validate that research, and we don't want to cover some of these things before they're very proven. But there's plenty of calming places in VR that you can go to that just give you exercises to breathe and embodiment, right? Just bring you back into your body and ground you back in your own skin. Those are available all the time. Calm, I think, has something, and then there's the other one I can't think of right now what its name is, but there's a bunch of those out there. Casey Chiefs Productions saying a theater play in VR would be cool. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, like, theater is perhaps like one of the biggest activities we could all end up going to enjoy in VR over the long span of time, right? Every Christmas, Agile Lens, I talked to them already on this stream, they do a production of A Christmas Carol, and they do it with the very latest Unreal Engine metahuman avatars that they can manage and stream into a headset. They put a rig on of a person so that they can capture their facial expressions as they're doing them. And last season, I decided to attend the apparently there were two problematic streams that they tried to do in last year's showing of all these Christmas carols, and I just happened to try to attend the two performances that they had some kind of a problem with putting on the show. But they've done this previously going back, and it's amazing to see them make progress each year on, like, let's chip away at making this theatrical experience a little bit better for everyone. There are people in like VR chat that have done
Yes.
puppets. Like, I've seen even people do puppets with their hand controls instead of embodying. They embody a puppet in their hand. And then in Horizon Worlds, I've seen people use whole lots of props around the place. So they built a room where they hid the people behind a wall. And then I don't know if the people were invisible or they were just hidden behind the wall, but then they moved around objects on the other side of the wall, and all you saw was these objects moving in your room.
Interesting.
But it looked like the objects were moving on their own because they were basically being like operated by someone hiding on the other side of the wall there.
Oh, how cool.
So it was like you can see all these. You can see there are already troops in VR, acting troops. There's already actors in VR. There's people. If you go look at what virtual reality did, the developers of Tender Claws, I want to say that they even unionized humans of like Tender Claws or something.
Yes.
Because Tender Claws did Tempest, which was a phenomenal exploration of theater in VR, run by a single person usually, who is performing and bringing all the other people around them into the performance. I put my kid through this experience. I went through this experience myself. Phenomenal, top of the line experiences. This idea of role playing with others is going to be, it's already there. It's not easy to get into the role, right? There's all these roadblocks and friction, and it's just getting so much better all the time.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. And, Dunadim's bringing up the underpresence. I never did get to participate in that one, actually. Did you?
I looked at it. I think I went into it after it was live. So that was
Yeah.
a very interesting experience. For those who aren't familiar, Tender Claws made virtual reality 2. They did Stranger Things VR,
Mhm.
and they had another one that they just announced last week at South by Southwest. A very creative group. We're going to try to have them into the studio because they've got such a deep history
That'd be great.
thinking about this market. But VVR 1, virtual reality 1, hit like Daydream, I think it was, back in the day. And you basically you found headsets in your space and you put them on and you would teleport to other places. Phenomenal little interaction scheme. They also had the reach, the teleport, like reach and grab stuff. Then they did the Underpresents and the Tempest, and both of these were like, how do we ticket for a performance like this? What does it look like to sell a ticket that's, I don't know if it was $5 or $10 for a specific showing, and then you show up at that time and you get granted access. It was a very compelling, interesting experience that I didn't see repeated. Right? Like, they did this whole thing for about 6 months or a year. They even brought it back to test again. And it's hard to do this. We've seen people run escape rooms, right? And you can have a game master run the escape room in a similar manner as being this like performer that is also part of the escape room. It's a very, very, very big idea. So you're on the right track out there. I see Live Oven Mike out there, and Dunadim Mindweaver. Hello to Colt out there, and Mr. Mycelium, all our regular commenters. If you have any questions, bring them up. We're having a very fun, open, freeform discussion right now about the things we really love about VR. Yeah,
I think I like this. I love it when we get into this part of the show and it's just talking and hanging out with the audience. So, and yes, we do not talk about the sequel to VVR.
Yeah, I mean, we do, because
we do.
I mean, all right,
we don't.
let's talk about the idea there, right?
All right.
The idea there was, you're joining you're going into a world that is being shut down.
Yes.
It's being shut down by the mega corporation, basically a stand-in for like a Meta or a Vive or Microsoft shutting down AltSpace, right? They released that I think before some of these networks shut down, and you got to go around and what does the narrative look like?
Yeah.
Of being inside of a space as it shuts down, and these there are I think two teachers, or one of them is a teacher who runs Tender Claws. Very thoughtful people, think very deeply about game mechanics, but you had to go around to all of these people and non-player characters and interact with them in this experience with a lot of bugs on top
Yes.
of them, on top of the narrative being that this place is shutting down and
Right.
experiencing a lot of bugs. So it didn't work. It failed to land in a really, really serious way, even though it had some cool mechanics. Like, did you operate the mech in there? People loved the
No,
mech.
I don't. I'm not gonna lie. I never got that far. I loved virtual reality one. I mean, that was just, for the time, it was groundbreaking. And then I started playing the second one, and I just hit too many bugs, and it just got to the frustration point where I just didn't want to play it anymore.
Yeah, so Live Open Mike said basically the same thing. We're echoing each other here. I like the idea of the game. The execution was lacking, and I think they did go back and fix a bunch of their bugs, but it was too late, right? Like whenever they finally got those in, everyone had already moved on from being excited about it.
I want to call out Christian Eccles here, rip AltSpace, because when you were talking about the premise of virtual reality 2, that brought up the last night of AltSpace for me, and running from room to room and just waiting for the final message to hit. And it was I've seen that happen a couple of times, and I think that's another thing that we're going to get into on another episode soon, like delisting and companies removing and shutting down things like AltSpace and stuff. So I think that would be an interesting conversation.
I've decided what I'm going to do here. Okay, I can't let the stream end without talking about last week. Okay,
no. We let's do it. Let's just do it right now, because I want to hear about this.
Well, here I'm going to give the choice to the audience here, and maybe Beck, you can make a poll. Do you want to hear about my visit to Walkabout's headquarters in Austin?
Okay.
Or do you want to hear about my visit to the holodeck in Austin? Which I want to see. I want to see which one: the holodeck in Austin or the Walkabout headquarters.
Here's my 2 cents. As much as I want to hear about the holodeck in Austin, this is just my vote. I want to see what the audience says. But as much as I want to hear about the holodeck in Austin, that's probably more of a Thursday topic. Fair. Where Walkabout is a game, and we're on a games show.
That's why I know, right? Yes, I'll wrap it back to games. I'll find a way, but you're exactly right. Okay,
but I'm just saying, we love the technology either way. But
we've got 4 votes, 5 votes. Let's give them a few more minutes. 6 votes. They're voting. I'm watching voting happening in VR.
It's like, oh my
God,
this is beautiful. I feel like Elon Musk watching the totals come in.
Wait, no, man. Oh wait, we just lost a vote. Wait, no, we got the vote back. We're at 7 votes, people. This is fantastic. Live voting, 10 votes.
Who's going to win? Who's going to win?
As the voting is increasing,
the drama.
My frame rate is dropping. 12 votes. All right, back 13 votes. I think we're ready to end the poll. We've got enough here for a consensus on what they want to hear about. I got to decide here.
And the winner is the holodeck by a nose. So
interesting. Yeah,
well, you get to hear about it twice, because I know you'll talk about it again on Thursday.
Well, you'll see who tunes in over there. All right, so the holodeck is in Austin, Texas, and it is built by a collection of people that include some of the brightest minds working in VR today. When I was out there last week, Amanda Watson was out there working on the Airlink connection for this holodeck, and then I talked with Alex that I mentioned previous on the show. All right. You get Austin, Texas is one of the few places in the world that has auto cars. They have self-driving cars on the road in Austin right now. So it's possible in the very near future for someone to get off of a private plane and get picked up by an auto car, a self-driving car, and that car drives across Austin and then to this gated community where it will drive up a hill to drop the person off on a hill overlooking Lake Austin and the city of Austin. And it's the most breathtaking sight I've ever seen.
Oh, I lived there for 5
just
years. It's beautiful.
beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful. Have you seen Lake Austin, or have you ever done
My
the hiking around
grandparents
Lake?
my grandparents had a summer house on Lake Austin, sir. I
Oh
spent my
wow,
summers there.
incredible. Well, and I did some research that apparently Lake Austin was built in 1939 by
Hmm.
damming up the water there,
Yeah,
and so like you've got this recreation area and all this stuff. But
that's
what they
gorgeous.
do is I get there, right. Okay, so I just painted the picture for you of riding from a private plane all the way to a top of a hill, and you haven't interacted with a single person. What do you find at the top of the hill? Okay, so that's what I want to walk you through, and what my article
Okay.
walk us through very soon. You get to this bottom of the hill, and they walk you through a sales presentation for selling the homes that are going to be built here. This is a construction project with homes that are very, very expensive, overlooking this Lake Austin and the city of Austin. Very wealthy people that are going to be living there with some incredible luxuries that they're planning for the location. So the thing, you go to this building at the bottom of the hill. They show you a video of what this property will look like, and at the end of the video, they say that living here will offer you a frictionless lifestyle. And I go, oh, what's that mean? Okay. So after this video where they show me what this property will look like, they show me all the amenities, all this computer generated imagery in the video. If I look up at a photo on the wall, it looks entirely photorealistic, showing all the houses that are going to be dotted along this hill. Incredible homes, most beautiful homes you've ever seen. But to my eyes, in this sales office, that still photo over on the wall looks photorealistic, like it's already been made. It's just a still
Interesting.
image, but it looks real. That's the first introduction to this project, right? I go up the hill, and they take you to an observation tower, and you get to see that view of Lake Austin, and you get to see the city over there. And this whole thing happens in a bend in the river, in the
Hmm.
waterway, that's just so darn eye catching. And here's where it all leads to, right? I get up to the top of that tower, and I go, wow, right? They planned it. They planned for me to have that wow,
Hmm.
because this is their sales pitch, right? They introduce you to the idea down at the bottom of the hill. Then you get up to the top of the hill, and you see what the view could look like from your home. It's this incredible view that you're familiar with, Don, right? Then you come down this tower, this observation tower, and there's a 5,000 square foot tent with metal railing inside, around the inside. And you go inside, and it's a 5,000 square foot holodeck.
That's
They've
so
got
crazy.
OptiTrack cameras all around the outside. They've got they've got, I want to say, 3 or 4 different tracking systems that they've attempted to get up and running in this space. I went into their control room, and they've got 3 humidifiers running in their control room, because if they touch an object, and if they touch one of the screens, it'll electric shock. Not electric shock. It'll
Static.
static. It'll do a
Yeah.
static release of electricity in the dry air. So they're putting water into the air so
Oh
that
my
the
gosh.
static releases before it builds up into these big static discharges. That's how much power they're putting through this room. They've got 4090s on a bank of PCs. They've got wireless performance up there on other markers. And then you go into this demo and you try out the holodeck, and they're beaming from those 4090 PCs photorealistic imagery of what these homes would become. And one of the demos here is they walked me to the private restaurant that they're planning to build on this hill. And they walked me over to the corner of this private restaurant, right? And I'm walking next to other people who are also in headsets, and I'm watching their headsets move along, and it all works beautifully.
Yeah.
And they're doing all the same things that we know the computer does in Star Trek: The Next Generation, right? The computer steers you away from the walls in Star Trek: The Next
So
Generation.
they're doing redirected walking. That is amazing.
No, they're doing it with people, and they're doing it with a sales pitch. They're
Awesome.
doing it by asking me questions about the things around me. So like, they're directing my attention to look at this thing over here by asking me a question about it. Hey, do you want to go, like, look at one of the examples was we walked over to a bar that would have been stocked with a whole bunch of drinks, and they would typically ask these people, what kind of drinks would you want to see stocked here in the bar since it's your bar. And so you get this, oh, I would love to have brandy or whatever, right? You get this, and you see that that's missing amongst all the bottles. But they're directing my attention by trying, like, I don't realize it, right? If I was trying to buy this place, I would have just followed the salesman around this entire journey as the salesman is telling me what I should look at. I would have never hit the wall.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I was using, these were Quest Pro headsets. They also showed me Quest 3. They're Quest Pro headsets modified with OptiTrack tracking. And so they have antlers on top to be tracked by the cameras all over the place. And one of the last parts of this tour, right? They walk you over to a pair of seats that are like reclining theater seats. They sit you down and you're in the theater, the full-size full-size movie theater, big screen that they're planning to build on this private property with all the other amenities. And I'm watching a clip from, I think it was a Marvel movie. I watched a short clip from this movie here up on the screen. It was phenomenal. But what they did was they combined it with, I think, 5.1 sound from physical giant speakers.
Okay. You muted.
So I was watching a movie in VR, but getting sound from the kinds of speakers that you would have in a physical giant theater. And right, like that worked. It worked so phenomenally well. I've got a 2,000 word article we'll be publishing very soon as I check all my facts and get this all right. There's various things I learned about this, Don. The sales pitch, right? You said redirected walking, right? You knew exactly what I was talking about. They did redirected walking, right? They did it. But it was through a sales pitch.
We didn't think about that. We never thought of that.
Right?
Guided redirected walking.
Yes.
That is, we just coined a new phrase right here on the
Guided
show.
Redirected
walking. Yes. So having a tour guide inside of something like this to take you around is brilliant.
And so
absolutely brilliant.
And in addition to that, they had 2 humans on either side of me who would grab me in case I decided to go off to an actual physical wall and collide with it. And then I finished this tour. I had lunch with them. I also went through the tour again in a Quest 3, trying other tracking systems. One of the coolest bits of information about this was the anti-latency. Do you know what anti-latency is?
Yes, I do. The floor tiles and
they tried to put the anti-latency in the roof, in the ceiling.
Interesting. Okay.
And then they realized that the winds of Texas are blowing the tent and causing the roof to wave like this.
Okay.
So completely destroyed. So now the anti-latency tracking is just mood lighting, basically. It's green mood lighting in the system. They tried to use the shared spatial anchors from Meta. They're currently trying to use the pass-through camera access for another tracking system. They had and they're using OptiTrack right now. That was the one I experienced through the course of the day. One of the coolest things I saw, though, they put me in the headset that the person who's running the tour sees. And they actually showed me that the system is running 2 tracking systems simultaneously on top of one another. And when one of the tracking systems, like I could watch a headset separate from itself as the 2 tracking systems differed in what they were telling the whole system about the position of this particular headset. And so the person experiencing that didn't feel that. It's me as the commander of this journey would get to see the what mismatch and what everyone else is experiencing. The tour guide has the names of each person floating above their heads. They know who they're talking to, even though they're just a headset. Now for the people at home who know what a 4090 is capable of, they're also trying to get their hands on the latest 5000 series, but that's obviously like everyone understands how difficult that is. But here's the thing I got to point out for you. All right, Don, this is going to get you going. Okay.
Oh boy.
Imagine yourself standing in a bathroom.
Okay.
With mirror right here. and another mirror right there.
Okay.
And now you're standing here, and this is virtual reality.
Okay.
You look over there, and you see a reflection of your headset, but not just one reflection. You see two reflections because it's getting reflected doubly off of this mirror and off of that mirror. And so if I look deep into this mirror, I'm actually seeing double reflections of my headset
I've
back
never
and
seen
forth,
that.
like I'm standing. And so like there's a window to the outside of this Austin view that I would see from the hill. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But actually, let's just look at this mirror situation here and observe. They mirrored back multiple times. That's how much ray tracing and power they were throwing at this experience.
Okay, yes, my head just exploded with that because you've seen it happen on stream. I can get fixated on just a single mirror for like a while, just watching myself, and to see a reflection of a mirror in a mirror. Oh man, that's just too many layers down the rabbit hole. That is amazing. So I got to bring up a comment here. I think it got a little bit buried. Here we go. Z Cubed VR, because he brought this up, and this is something that I saw. We've seen it on socials, obviously at this point. But the omnidirectional Disney Robo Pucks work. If they worked better, that could be great with a holodeck like this as well. And I think you know what I'm talking about. The floor, the omnidirectional floor that Disney's trying to create right now is absolutely insane. So there is. And it is close. And I'm thinking about doing this as a day trip to possibly maybe bring that coverage here if it was worthy. Close to where I live, there is this really rich guy who built a bar that apparently has an entire holodeck in it, like with a moving floor and the whole 9 yards that redirects you. And if anybody out there knows what I'm talking about and you can throw the name of that in the comments, that would be great. But it's in Oklahoma City, so it would be like a 4-hour drive for me to go see this thing.
Yeah. Well, next time in Bentonville, you can pick me up on the way, and we'll go together.
Yeah, we'll just go. We'll go hang out together in there. But yeah, the floor that Disney showed is like next level. I mean, that is like wow.
All right, so I'm gonna bring this full circle back to gaming. All right, I'm gonna make this about gaming. All right.
You said
there's a place. So, there's a place in Bentonville called, I think it's Red Box Realty. I saw it, and they're building tiny homes into storage containers, just like
the stacks.
Ready Player One, just like the stacks in Ready Player One. My argument is, why don't you just plop down 20 of those types of homes in a particular community, and then build a gym. Don't build a model home. Build a gym. Equip it with a holodeck, a full OptiTrack system with a bank of 5,000 series PCs. And that gym is the rec center for the entire community. You schedule time for spatial ops in there. You schedule time for other large scale VR experiences, and you play them. You play them with other members of the community, or invite people from outside the community to go play in this big giant rec center at the center of your experience. Have you ever been to California? Have you ever seen Hearst Castle? Have anyone in our audience ever been to Hearst Castle?
I would love to hear. I lived in California for a little while.
So so Hearst Castle has it's this place facing the Pacific Ocean that William Randolph Hearst built 100 years ago. And it's basically a castle, but it has a movie theater, it has tennis courts, it has pools, and it has all the same amenities that they're planning to build into this place in Austin, Texas, for these people who are buying these homes. But I'm looking at this whole thing going, why can't we take this model, right, that you're using to sell homes to people like this, and use it to model communities around the things we want to do together? Like, why aren't we reusing space in this way so that, like, you and I can go have a paintball game down at the local rec center anytime we want, and it's not a lot of headache to go. We don't have to go buy paintballs, we don't have to go get all this physical protective equipment to go do it. We're just doing it with our VR headsets, and we're maybe picking up the bow from the wall, right? Like that's what's so cool to imagine. Imagine going to a rec center and there's an armory right at the entrance, just like remember in Rec Room, there's the quest for the Golden Cup,
Yes,
and you enter the first
that.
room, and then you've got your bow over there, your sword over there. You could have that in this rec center where everyone goes and uses this multi-purpose room as a literal holodeck for the community to play whatever journey you want.
Oh man. And then see that also gets people up. It gets people moving. It gets physicality involved. It's an awesome thought.
Yeah. So storage containers with tiny homes. Everyone's upset about the stacks. Yeah, I get it. But I mean, you think about it, right?
Coming.
Like, what if we don't need homes that are so large because we have so many places to go in VR?
Exactly. We inhabit virtual spaces. I mean, that is literally the premise of Ready Player One, is that everything that is worth doing happens in an online virtual shared space.
Onakaze saying, "Oh, what Xanadu was based on in Citizen Kane." Yes, that is the reference. If you've ever seen Citizen Kane, that is William Randolph Hearst is the fictionalized version of that character. And yeah, you imagine 100 years ago, he made a fortune off of sending the newsprint out each day, the newspapers telling you what the news was worldwide, starting wars and whatnot with his news. And he made this place on the hill that you could enjoy all these fantastic things. 100 years later, our amenities haven't changed.
No,
right? It's still the same set of things that Hearst had for all of his friends 100 years ago. And I'm looking at it going, man, no, I want to go play war games.
Yeah.
For I want to play paintball. Like that would be cool. Like,
funny though, and then Z Cubed has the perfect though. He says, and then your VR YMCA will become full of 12-year-olds on contractors night. So
as a Californian, I just don't hate the pricing of a garage. What if your community doesn't have cars? What if you take an auto car from the front gate to your home? What if you don't need to spend on the garage on garages? We don't need roads.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good one to end it on. I appreciate that, Don.
To earn that. Yeah.
Well, we will get into that more on VR Download with David Heaney, and I will have an article on that very soon on UploadVR.com. I guess you're going to have to wait for my breakdown of the Walkabout headquarters. You know where Walkabout's offices are, Don? They're in the former headquarters. They're in the former headquarters of the Alamo Drafthouse.
Okay, you're killing me. You're like, oh my God, I miss Austin so much. Austin is like such a big part of my life and my heart. It's not even funny. So
well, it was cool to see that
stories
city
for another time.
Yeah, if you're out there in Austin, thank you for letting me see your community. It was cool. We'll have articles on those things very soon. Very interesting things happening in Austin. I'm curious to see what kind of a hub Austin can become over the long term for VR if these projects continue on the path. I mean,
what on. you got let's see here. We've got the omnidirectional treadmill down there.
Alchemy Labs
down there. We've got Walkabout down there. You got a 5,000 square foot holodeck. I know even back in the 90s when I was leaving, all of Hollywood was trying to move there and like open big production studios. Apple has a massive production plant in Austin, like one of the biggest production plants in the country. So
I think Ernest Cline might even be from Austin.
Actually, I think Ernie is from Austin. Gary Gygax is from Austin. I mean, just
yes. What did he make? So anyways, I've got lots of stories. We'll share a lot more. I've got more to share on that. And thank you to Daniel Leeper out there for the troll fund that he's building. He hasn't trolled us with many comments, but he's
building it up. He's building it up, saving it for a big one.
Well, anyways, thank you to VRsified for the suggestion out there. Thank you to all of our commenters. This has been an off-topic discussion, but a fun one. So thank you for putting this together. Thank you, Don, for this. Thank you to our viewers out there. We'll see you in the future, and come back on Thursday for VR Download
and Friday for VR Gamescast, and we'll talk to NPCs.